Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are live once again with another episode of Empire State of Baseball. This is August 26th of the year 2024, episode number 99, airing on Instagram, X, YouTube, and powered by StreamYard. Well, gentlemen, we're here once again for another Monday night episode of ESB. This is officially also the last Monday show of August. Believe it or not, next week's already Labor Day weekend, the unofficial start of summer. It's a bittersweet holiday because the holiday itself is always fun. Enjoy the nice day off. Usually take a few extra days PTO on it too, but it does mark the end of my favorite season. Joe, how are you doing on this fine Monday evening?
I'm doing well. I'd be doing a lot better if the Mets closed out that game yesterday. That's for sure.
Oh, tell me about it.
You take the split with the Padres, but the Mets left one out there. And when you look back at this season, you're going to look to that game and say, yes, we had a lead and we had our two best relievers going on the mound and we lost that game. That one's going to sting. That one's going to hurt. I'm hoping they can bounce back against the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks are red hot. The Mets are playing good baseball. They need to play great baseball if they want to make the postseason. So that little shock to the system, little bit of an injured pride today on an off day.
Jackson Merrill with the walk-off home run, sending Mets fans home. Not happy, or at least to work with the a true Sunday scary of a home run from the San Diego Padres. But it's kind of funny how baseball works out, fellas, where at the beginning of the year when we were talking about our predictions and where the Mets would be at this point, who would have thought then that the Arizona Diamondbacks, San Diego Padres would be two teams right in front of them in a National League wild card race, and yet you're playing them back to back. With the Padres series has just passed, and now the Diamondbacks for 3 games starting tomorrow. I know we're going to get more into that later on tonight. Tom, how you doing today?
We're doing good. We're doing better after Aaron Judge just robbed a homer and turned it into a double play. The man can just do everything. He's 1.2ing OPS for the season. It's wild what we're seeing out of Judge, and the Yankees had a lot of fun yesterday with the back homers. Something that maybe the Yankees are starting to peak a little bit. They're up 2-0 right now on the Nats, and I think this is the time of year Mets fans would want the same. This is when you want to start peaking because it's so hard to be incredible all year. Start peaking at this time, really rolling for the playoffs. A team like the Diamondbacks, like Joe said, are kind of in that boat right now, and hopefully the Yankees can get there because they look good. Pitching has been better. Let's go. Let's get ready for this stretch run.
And more on the Yankees later on tonight at the Empire Express. Just want to shout out a few members of the chat before I throw it back to Tom for our row back spot. Jacob Petruzzi, almost as always, it's automatic that he's like the first to show up in the comments. Hit that like and sub button for the fellas. Appreciate you, Jacob. We have Joey Bag of Donuts says, what a play by Judge. The Strike Zone, that is NFE. NFE going live regularly Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. It does a great Yankees discussion, really opens up the floor to those in the chat. He also goes live for pregame, postgame. He does a great job over there. Give him a follow and subscribe if you haven't already. We also have Ghost in the building. Shout out to my guy Ghost. And then we also have our very own Sierra, who is the host of Empire State of Baseball's Extra Innings, which will be live for another episode on X Space tonight at about 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. But without further ado, let's toss it back to Tom for a little bit of row back action. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, last week, guys, I was telling you as we're getting closer to football and especially college football season starting, that Roback had some licensed gear. They had a few schools available, and I said more would be coming, and boy, did I not lie to you. So last week, I know we mentioned University of Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame, Ohio State. This week, they almost like doubled the list. They got Auburn up there, Baylor, Florida State, University of Florida, Nebraska, Virginia Tech, a bunch of other schools, and they're still adding. So if you're a college football fan and you want to get some nice gear for the season coming up, they have polos. They have some of the hoodies and the quarter zips available. Check out rowback.com. Use promo code TWASPL15 to get yourself 15% off of your first order using that email address. Plus, still got a bunch of that last call stuff that's 30% off. So you really can stack those discounts to get some good deals and steals on some other items. Rowback.com.
Yeah, definitely have to take advantage of that code. I'm a big Rowback fan myself, wearing one of the polos tonight, so highly recommend it. And I did use the TWASPL15 several months ago to get this shirt.
Say if you're a local New Jersey, I'm wearing the Garden State here. You see a bunch of New Jerseys on it. They had a Rutgers themed one, so it's white and red with the black on the back. So if you're a Rutgers grad, which I'm sure some of you out there might be with the local area. Check that out, because what better way to rep the Scarlet Knights than a little New Jersey red and black and white polo.
Yep. No, 100%. Couldn't agree more with that. But anyway, we do have to get to a show for tonight. So giving you the quick rundown here. At the plate, we have a very special guest tonight, Eamon McAnaney, joining us today on the pod. He'll be on just in a moment. I'll hand it over to Rich in a second to do our introductions there. But we have a game segment tonight as well, Guess the Graph, where two of our hosts present an autographed baseball, and we try to guess who the autograph is. Always a fun game to introduce. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with the Empire Express, talking your latest and greatest of New York baseball, the latest Mets and Yankees news. Interesting time of the season, of course. But Rich, I'll hand it over to you for our introduction for this segment of At the Plate.
Oh, yeah. Another At the Plate. It's been a while, but I am looking forward to introducing our special guest for tonight's At the Plate. Our special guest was a graduate of Notre Dame University and would begin his career in sports broadcasting as a production assistant for ESPN, a role which transitioned him from behind the camera to in front of it, where at ESPN, specifically ESPNU, he would become a play-by-play announcer for college lacrosse. Our guest would turn to sports reporting for Channel 10 News in Palisades Park, New Jersey, and then anchor for News 12. But it was in 2011, our guest would contribute to SNY sports and entertainment news shows, but would adopt roles as a sports anchor and reporter for SNY, where he remains today. Ladies and gentlemen, stepping up to the plate, Eamon McAnaney.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me on. I got to work on this camera here, I guess, but that was quite an intro. It took me back down to memory lane. I don't know if I feel accomplished or old, but thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Well, it's definitely the former Eamon, and thank you so much for joining us here. I know as we're figuring out the technical things here, but we can get at least into our first part of the discussion, which is you and your career and how this whole thing started. At what point did it click in your brain that you wanted to become a sports broadcaster?
Pretty young in life, growing up, I think I'm a little bit older than most of you guys. It didn't revolve around ESPN or cable, but I watched Warner Wolf do the highlights, and I just loved it. I thought as I got older, I thought I'd be more of a sports writer, but the way it sort of transitioned, it led to more TV and radio opportunities. So, I always watched the sports shows, George Michael Sports Machine, Jerry Gerard on Channel 11. So I was always, drawn to those guys. Bill Mazer, of course, on Channel 5, Sports Extra. And then when, you mentioned getting a chance to work at ESPN as a production assistant, and you saw the best of the best, whoever you want to put on Mount Rushmore there, I worked with them, and you saw how much fun they had and how good they were at it. You're like, that's really what I want to do. So I took my chance and got in front of the camera and worked in some small markets, and here we are now.
Yeah, and Eamon, tell us a little bit. Like you started off in ESPN, you're on the college scene. It's obviously got to be a quite a different experience than covering mostly New York sports at SNY. What's the difference in prep, in knowledge, and adaptability that you had to go through doing the ESPN gig, where you're probably moving around the country a lot? You're probably, seeing a lot of players and teams that you don't see on a regular basis. Here in New York, you're seeing the local teams every single day. So you really only have to focus on one half of it. Like how big is that difference? How difficult is adapting to that kind of job, in the college game versus what you're doing now?
It's kind of like I compare it to taking final exams every week as opposed to taking an open book quiz. when you're calling college football games or college basketball games for ESPN, well, your schedule. They're always going to throw a curveball at you. And, every once in a while you get a call and say, hey, on Thursday night, can you go do Northern Illinois against Ohio? And they're two teams you know nothing about. And even if you do know something about them, you guys take a look at a football field, especially a college game where the depth chart could be like 4 or 5 receivers deep. You got to do a lot of studying, and you don't have a whole lot of time to prep. You have a couple of days. Whereas this, I grew up in New York. I know all these teams, but it's the same 5 or 6 teams on a nightly basis. So, coming into tonight, I already know what happened. I know the Mets let one get away. I know the Yankees had a great win and are rolling. So, sure, you have to keep up to date. You have to read the articles, but the prep work is light years difference when you're calling play-by-play and getting ready for college games about 2 teams that you really don't know about. When I did lacrosse, it was a lot different because we did the same 4 or 5 teams all year long. So by the end of the year, you had a familiarity level. It's kind of like Jim Nantz calling the Patriots or the Chiefs. By November, he can do those games blind because he's been doing the same teams all year. So, but for sports night, getting ready to prep, it's more reacting to what happened than the prep work because, going in that yesterday the Yankees hit 3 straight home runs or that Aaron Judge has been on a tear. Joe, I heard you talking about the Mets loss. All that. Probably the worst loss, one of the worst losses of the year because of what was at stake. So that going in. So there's not a whole lot of prep work. It's more reacting than studying.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no, 100%. And definitely have to give you kudos, too, for having to pick up those games. Because like you said, you get those random college games, and you really have to study that depth chart to know who's getting the ball any given night there, too. But I definitely want to ask, and I know you mentioned yourself, too, with ESPN and some of the all-time greats, the Mount Rushmores of the sports industry, as you mentioned, too. And whether it was with ESPN, SNY, or whether anywhere else, just curious, from your standpoint, being a sports personality, who was your favorite personality that you had a chance to interview, whether it was someone who just gave a great interview or someone you looked up to growing up? Who was the most interesting personality you had the chance to have a conversation with?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Getting a chance to talk sports with guys like Chris Berman and Dan Patrick was an amazing professional and fan experience, and then get a chance to see them work. But I don't know if I ever interviewed them. But the 2 times where I was sort of like that Chris Farley character from SNL, where you just wanted to tell the guy how great he was, was when I got a chance to interview Chris Mullen. I did play-by-play of a couple of St. John's basketball games when he was a coach, and he was the guy. I played high school basketball, wasn't very good, but he was my favorite player. And then, of course, when Don Mattingly was manager of the Marlins, I had a few opportunities, when I was filling in for Steve Gelbs as the Mets sideline reporter one series, to talk to him. And, you're sitting there talking about the Marlins and Giancarlo Stanton's new stance, and all you want to do is talk about hitting home runs in 8 straight games, hitting home run in Game 2 in 1995. You want to tell him, how much he meant to you, but you really can't do that when you're there as a professional. But so those were the 2 experiences that I really think of where you can't be awestruck because you're there to get information and do your job, but where you're really just sort of like, hey, remember that time when you hit all those grand slams that year? That was awesome.
I was going to say, Eamon, so it sounds like you grew up a Yankee fan, just speaking specifically about, 85 Mattingly and all that.
Well, since I work at SNY, we're going to have to keep that a secret, right?
I don't want to blow you up here. I don't want to put your job at
No, I'm a very impartial reporter, but yes, as a kid, I mean, look, I'm 7 years old when Chris Chambliss walks off the ALCS, 8 and 9 when they win back-to-back World Series. Thurman Munson wins the MVP in '76, and at that time, the Mets were awful, so it was pretty easy who you were going to be a fan of, and so that was away we go. So yes, definitely a Yankee fan as a kid.
Nice. And I have to say, too, I know you mentioned filling in for Steve Gelbs on the time on the field, and I always found that as a fan watching the broadcast, I was always amazed by those in-game interviews and exploring the different parts of the stadium, whether home or away. How is a typical day when you're doing that shift on the on-field reporting? So I personally find it fascinating getting to explore the different parks, meet different people. What is a typical working shift when you're filling in for the on-field reporting?
Yeah, filling in for that job is pretty difficult, especially because you're parachuting in, literally. No one knows you. And for those, the listeners who don't know the baseball culture, it really is sort of every day the same people are there. So, and it goes all the way back to day 1 of spring training. So a reporter like Steve Gelbs, who is tremendous at his job, if for whatever day he doesn't get something out of the clubhouse on that day, he's got a backpack full of stuff that he's already worked on because he's been around. So when you fill in out of nowhere and you're in that clubhouse, you get to the clubhouse, I forget the exact amount of time, but I think it's like 3 hours before the game, maybe even more now. So the manager will speak, and you need to be there for that. And then after the manager speaks, they open the clubhouse. So you're new to the players. They don't really know who you are. So you have to introduce yourself, and you have to try to come up with a story that's going to add something to that broadcast. And I think Steve does an amazing job with that. You can tell by watching Steve how he's able to cultivate sources and stories and relationships with the coaches that add things to those stories. That's tough to do in 2 hours when they're getting ready for a game. So filling in for that job is very tough. But the key is, to try to develop a rapport with the players, go in with a game plan so you know who you want to talk to, and take good notes so that you can take whatever information you have and whittle it down. The thing about baseball that makes those hits difficult is you really have no idea how much time you're going to have, right? Like you start telling a story with 1 out and all of a sudden a guy hits into a double play, you got to wrap that story up. So it's a challenging job, which is why I think Steve and Meredith with the Yankees are so good at it.
You guys are listening to Eamon McAnaney. He joins us here live on At the Plate here on Empire State of Baseball. Eamon being with SNY since 2009, previously with ESPN doing a college lacrosse play-by-play broadcasting. Now, Eamon, we've been touching on the Mets and Yankees throughout this interview, so obviously I would love to get your opinion on both these teams. We can start with the Mets and head over to the team on the other side of the East River. What's your thoughts, latest and greatest, on the New York Mets as they are now 2.5 games back, I believe, of NL Wild Card 3?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride, obviously. We here at SNY, when they're off to that, poor start, wondering what are we going to talk about in August? And then they go on that tear, and now they're kind of, inconsistent. I'm with Joe completely. I think that game yesterday is going to haunt them. I know you were talking big picture. I think they've overachieved. The fact that they're in this mix, I don't want to put asterisks next to anything, but I think if the Braves were healthy, the Mets wouldn't be in the mix. But the Mets have recovered, so you got to give them credit for that. But that game yesterday, I understand they only had 2 runs, but they were getting great play after great play. That play Iglesias made was incredible. They get the guy trying to steal the base when he was safe and comes off the bag. They had it all set up with Budo to go to Diaz. I think it's a classic second guess to take Budo out of there, but obviously Budo didn't have it. I think they're going to, they're not taking advantage of earlier in the week or that homestand, the A's, and I'm drawing a blank on the other team that was part of that. They're just not taking advantage of the games they need to win here. Marlins, thank you. But then on the flip side, they get the 2 walk-offs against the Orioles. So they're a fun team to watch. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs right now the way it's set up, just because I just think they're letting too many games get away, and 2.5 certainly isn't insurmountable. If they can somehow win this series against the Diamondbacks, then they're in great shape because the White Sox are awful. But that's asking a lot to go take a series from the hottest team in baseball on the road. I think they're going to be in it, but I think they're going to come up short because I think the Braves are winning tonight, so that'll be 3 games back if that holds. I just think the Braves are the better team despite all the injuries, and the Mets just haven't been consistent enough yet to really get on a tear like they were in June.
Who do you think the Mets need? Lindor's playing at an MVP level. Vientos has been
Alonso's the guy.
Alonso's got to be the guy.
He's the only guy who hasn't gotten on that tear yet. They all got off to horrible starts, right? And you're sitting there saying this team stinks and has no foundation. And obviously that's what we do in New York. We overreact. Yeah. But they looked really awful. And then J.D. Martinez kind of got it going for him. And then Nimmo and Lindor got hot. Lindor stayed hot. Lindor's having an incredible year post April, people start talking MVP. I think it's a little late for that. People love Shohei Ohtani, but that aside, he's having an incredible year. He has not cooled off. Nimmo's cooled off. McNeil had a hot spurt. Alonso has not had that hot spurt. He's had big games. He's had times where you think, okay, here it comes. He has not been the Pete Alonso of old. He's going to end up, 30 plus home runs. He's, decent home run numbers, but he has not been. And I'm a Pete Alonso guy. I think, if somehow, some way the Yankees, obviously I hope the Yankees sign Juan Soto for $1 gazillion and don't have any money left for Pete Alonso. But if for whatever they need to go to a backup plan, I think he'd fit nicely in that stadium. So I think Pete Alonso is a tremendous player because people hitting 40 home runs a year don't grow on trees.
Right.
But he's the guy who hasn't gotten hot to carry that team for like a week or 10 games. And he's the guy who needs to, turn it up.
On the flip side, with the New York Yankees, the team right now is a game and a half, at least going into today, over the Orioles in the American League East. Currently have a 3-0 lead over the Washington Nationals for 2 home runs. For 4-0. All right, there we go. Thank you, Thomas. 4-0 Yanks lead it over the Washington Nationals. Thoughts on the New York Yankees, and one of which being, who's winning this American League East? It just seems like there can't be anything more than 3 games of separation between these two juggernauts out of the East, between the Yankees and Orioles. Your thoughts?
I'll throw a challenge flag on your term juggernaut because they both look like the worst team in baseball at sometimes, and then they look really good. I mean, sitting here at SNY night after night watching the Yankees just be awful. I mean, we were 22 and 28 in their last 50, whatever. We were having a debate. Are the Yankees a bad team that had a hot stretch? Or are they a really good team that had a horrible stretch? I think they're a good team that had a horrible stretch. They're not a great team. And that being said, at that period, whatever you want to find the dates and bookend it, where they were one of the worst teams in baseball other than the White Sox, the Orioles still did not run away and hide. So I think the Yankees are going to be able to hold them off. They've had a lot of injuries. Neither team did enough at the break. The Orioles did more than the Yankees, but with Zach Eflin getting hurt, that kind of is lessened right now. So I think the Yankees hold them off and win the AL East. But I don't say that with a lot of confidence because the Yankees could go into a tailspin, although right now they're looking pretty good.
The benefit they have is they might not be a great team, but it seems like even across all Major League Baseball, there are no great teams. There's a lot of good to very good teams. I mean, I'm just curious. Do you have any thoughts on that of maybe why there's not? We haven't. I think this is the first year in how many years they're not going to have a 100-win team, minus COVID year, obviously. Any thoughts on like why there's more parity, mediocrity almost this year?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at that. There was a time, I think it was a week, 10 days ago or sometime, where the Yankees had the best record in baseball. I think it was like for a day or two, but you're like, how is that? Because look, the Phillies looked unbeatable, and then they went on a cold stretch. The Dodgers, the Braves are banged up. I think it's the injuries. Now, why they're injuries, I don't really know across baseball, but there are. And I don't think it's parity because there's some really bad teams out there. But I just think it's more the injuries and these teams, for whatever reason, going into, cold slumps. I mean, again, I don't mean to be redundant, but I thought the Phillies looked like world beaters, and then they were awful for like 10 days. And the Dodgers, the same thing. So no one's been able to just sustain success.
And it on the injury thing, I think it's the pitching more than anything. I mean, there's no arms left. I mean, these teams, they go on a losing streak. Usually you turn to an ace or a top tier guy and they give you 7 strong. Those guys don't exist anymore. So like this epidemic that we have with the pitching, these teams, there are no stop. The Dodgers have no stopper. Nobody's going to go out there and throw 7 innings and stop a 3-game losing streak for them.
7 innings. Who goes 7 innings? It's crazy. And again, look, these guys who run these teams, these people who run these teams, obviously know more than I do. But at the same point, you just get the feeling that they're throwing it up against the wall. And we go back to the Met game where Christian Scott was dealing, and they took him out early. I think it was against the Pirates, and they took him out early because he threw too many pitches in the game before. So they went into this game with this master plan that he's only going to throw X amount of pitches because we don't want him to get hurt. So they take him out of the game. They lose the game because, anyway, the bullpen wasn't there, and he gets hurt anyway. Yep. And look, I'm trying to be sarcastic about someone getting hurt, but my point is, these guys are getting hurt no matter what they do. So this whole magical number of how many pitches or up downs they all try to come up with, they're all just throwing it up against the wall. I have no idea why pitchers are still getting hurt. But to your point, that might be one of the theories, is because starters only go 5. You're overusing your bullpen, and most teams' bullpen are made up of mediocre pitchers anyway. We've seen that with the Mets and the Yankees. You think, wow, this guy's really good, and then he gets DFA'd because he's so overused that he goes through. Outside of Budo and yesterday aside, who on the Mets bullpen in the middle relief are you really, this guy's really good, then he stinks. This guy's really good, then he gets hurt. There's no consistency.
Yep.
That's because they're overworked, because no one goes more than 6 innings.
Exactly, especially with Reed Garrett, because think of how successful Reed Garrett was and important to that team in the first part of the season. And now then he was hurt. Now he doesn't look like the same pitcher at all. It's just some sort of epidemic. And like you said, the middle relief just is not there. That upper talent is not there. And the bullpen in general is the most fickle position in baseball, where you see guys have all-star seasons 1 year and never sniff all-star numbers again for the rest of their career.
Well, you could be Clay Holmes and be an all-star in the first half and the worst closer in baseball in the second half.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, Eamon, I gotta ask. All right, and the guys are gonna say, of course you go into this one.
Yeah, I know.
End of the season, free agency. Is Juan Soto going to be in a Yankee uniform come 2025, or a Met uniform, or somewhere else?
I don't think it's going to be somewhere else. Now, unless the Dodgers have some more secret deferral payments that they're not paying. I don't think it's somewhere else. Clearly, we all know the history of Scott Boras, and we all know that everyone wants to be the highest paid player in baseball or make as much money as possible, and Lord willing, go for it. I don't see him walking away from Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees. I understand that the Mets have Lindor. They could protect him with Alvarez. I'm sure he'd fit along just fine in that clubhouse. But if I'm Juan Soto and the Yankees are going to pay me $1 gazillion and the Mets are going to pay me $1 gazillion and one, now obviously if they pay me $2 gazillion, whatever. If Steve Cohen blows him out of the water and the Yankees come nowhere close to matching, he's going to be a Met. I get that. I'm not naive. But I just think he knows that he has a chance to be back-to-back with the greatest player in the game right now outside of Shohei Ohtani, the greatest hitter in the game. And that means a lot to your career. It means a lot to championships. I'm not going to sit here and be this naive Yankee fan and talk about the allure of the Yankees. I'm putting that to the side because I think it's going to come down to money. But I also think the fact that, Aaron Judge, and he's seen it this year, that's an amazing amount of protection. It makes your life much easier, and it's a fun ride. So if they can somehow, and again, maybe I'm putting too much emotion into it, but if they can somehow go deep into the playoffs and he can really feel what this town is like when you win, I think that's going to seal the deal. But if you're putting a gun to my head, I think it's the Yankees, and it's only because of Aaron Judge. And I don't think Hal's going to come up short or lame as much as Steve Cohen can blow him out of the water. I think Hal knows he can't let him go, so Hal will overpay. But he's going to make a ridiculous amount of money because the Yankees and Mets will be involved.
Eamon McAnaney with us here from SNY. Eamon, we're going to have some fun in a little bit after Tom talks about Instagram, a game we call Guess the Graph. I just want to respect your time. Do you have some time to
I'm fine. Yeah, we got a lot of, we're fine. We can play some games, but I got to get that code for Roback because I heard Tom's spiel, and my guy Riley Leonard at Notre Dame's a Roback guy. So if I can get as many codes as possible, I went on the website and let's just say, I need to do a few more shows at SNY to get some of those hoodies. So Tom, I get that code. I get the Riley Leonard code. We'll get going. But I don't want to cut into what's up next.
Because unfortunately, I think the Notre Dame hoodie is sold out. Because I also had my eye on that as not a Notre Dame graduate wish, but a Notre Dame fan. That would have been a nice one. But I think it's sold out. Some of the polos still there though. But let's talk a little bit about Instagram. You could follow us in our it says 4,900 plus. I'm gonna say almost 5,000 followers on Instagram at Empire State of Baseball.
That sounds a lot cleaner.
Almost 5,000 followers. We're close to that. A lot of fun stuff going on our Instagram. Not just stuff about the show, but Corey, the meme lord that he is always putting out new reels, funny stuff. If you're just a baseball fan, don't even have to be a Met or Yankee fan. There's a lot of fun stuff going on the Empire State Instagram account. So again, give us a follow at Empire State of Baseball. You could follow us individually at Corey Favs, at JR Pugs, at Rich J. Rivera, and at T. Waspil.
That's it. And tonight's game is Guess the Graph. And the rules are simple here, Eamon. And for those of you who are seeing this game for the first time, we're going to put up an autograph ball from a former player or executive or manager, someone affiliated with New York baseball in some capacity with the Yanks and the Mets. I will present one ball, and I believe Joe has the second ball as well.
Yes.
So I'm going to throw up my ball first. Now, we are playing for a bit of bragging rights. I don't know if there's money on the line or stuff. That's an offline conversation between the four of us. But Eamon has a very important role because he can play the role of a stopper. He can deny anybody a point because even though this is my ball that I can present, if nobody gets it, point for me. So Eamon's got an important role here. So Eamon, are you ready?
Yes.
3 guesses.
Right.
You get 3 guesses.
We have a 3-strike system. And here we go with the first ball. Now, I will say this. This is a former player who was a part of the 2009 year, the same season the Yankees won their last World Series.
Do we go in order or we just blurt out guesses? How does that work?
Blurt them out.
Just blurt them
Johnny
out.
Damon.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Johnny Damon.
Incorrect.
Is this Melky Cabrera?
Incorrect.
I like that guess though.
Great guess.
Robinson Cano?
Not Robinson Cano.
So you said part of the 09, but you're not like committing to it being the Yankee. I guess it's probably a Yankee.
Wait, I thought you said he was part of the 09 Yankees. I missed that hint?
Yes, he was. Yes, he
Okay.
was. He's part of the 09
Okay.
team.
Yeah.
I was gonna say someone else, but he was not on that team.
Might not necessarily mean he was actually on the championship roster.
It's kind of what I was thinking you were getting at.
Look, it looks like a Francisco Cervelli.
Great guess. Not Francisco Cervelli.
Ah,
Good guess.
But I got to tell you, Joe, you're extremely close.
Jose Molina.
Not Jose Molina. I like the ballpark you guys are in right now. I really do.
John Ryan Murphy.
Way early. Way early. Not John Ryan Murphy. I will say that although this is no longer an active player, this person does have an active role in baseball today.
I'm trying to think of. I see a C in there.
Kevin Cash.
It is Kevin Cash. Correct. Yep. It's Kevin Cash. Good pull, Thomas.
I see the K now. I see the K.
Yes. Kevin Cash, the current manager of the Tampa Bay Rays. That would be correct. So a point for Thomas, who is tied for first place here in our standings. So now he is in sole possession of first, unless Corey Favs has something else to say about it. Joe, you have our next ball.
All right. So in all fairness, this was neither a Met or Yankee, but this person was relevant in baseball this week.
Desperate for the point. Kids
We'll go with that as my first hint.
Relevant in baseball this week.
Yes.
Not for his penmanship.
Seriously.
This did my daughter
on
do
the line.
this? Was this my 2-year-old? So it looks like something she might have scribbled.
Well, the first name doesn't make sense, but I've never seen his autograph. But I think I see an O and an H, so I'll go with Shohei Ohtani, just since he hit 40-40 this week.
It is not. This I'll give you guys.
You'd probably be holding on to a Shohei Ohtani ball in a glass case and not putting it up on this show. But
So he's breaking into Joe's house then.
Is it O'Hearn?
No.
Yeah, because I can see it, Eamon, what you were saying with the O and H. I kind of see it there myself.
But he has recent relevance, which is
I
so
didn't say necessarily he did something this week, though. Could just be something happened that maybe he was brought up.
His name has been relevant this week.
Is he active? If I can ask that.
Well, you and Tom get your guesses, and I'll give you a second hint.
Okay, sure. Jesse Winker.
No.
Not a Met or a Yankee, Richard. Come on.
Oh, that's right. He did say that. I just gave that one away.
Kenta Maeda.
No.
Kenta
I see like an M and a D and an A.
Second hint. This person is in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh, very relevant.
He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame relevant this week.
Tony Gwynn.
Nope.
No. I don't want to give it away, but I know exactly what what means by relevance. I know exactly what he means.
Well, then why don't you say who it is then, Rich?
No, I'm not going to say. I know the hint he's applying. I'm just thinking of the player. I just don't want to get you guys closer to it.
Oh.
Eric Hinsky.
No.
He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and you said
That's
Eric
right. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. All right, that's second.
I'm not even sure Hinsky's in the Eric Hinsky Hall of Fame.
Why was Eric
I know ball, baby.
this week?
Maybe he was in the Canadian Hall of Fame. I don't know.
Why was he relevant this week? Rich, man, embarrass yourself sometimes. I feel bad for you.
Greg Maddux.
It is Greg Maddux.
Nice.
Whoa, you would think Greg Maddux had a better.
Yes,
Well,
it
thank
is
you,
the doctor
Eamon.
and relevant because the Greg Maddux documentary came out, I believe, yesterday.
Last night, I DVR'd it. I've watched about 5 minutes of it.
I need to watch the whole thing, but Eamon, great job. That you got the bricks I was laying down right there.
I guess it makes
I
sense
didn't
that.
go back code for that.
Listen,
Wrote the rollback code for him.
Rollback code
you
TWASPL
get some
15. Get
shirts.
yourself your 15%. Just use a different email if you've used one before. But yeah, you would think. I mean, he's the professor, he would have a signature that looks horrible like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's all how much time they really want to put into it.
yeah.
Probably a Met fan annoying him while he was just through 8 scoreless innings against the Amazons and Shea or something.
It was probably Joe.
Yeah, of course. Thanks to Rich.
Well, he was relevant to the Mets because he used to torture the crap out of the Mets.
He
So.
tortured a lot of people.
My guy Hector over at the newly named Uptown Sports TV. That man's signature is trash. Someone get homie some penmanship help. Oh my goodness. But hey, Eamon, thank you so much for joining us. And one thing I wanted to talk to you about is your work over at CityLax, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to changing the lives of the students we serve through the game of lacrosse. And I saw that the press release came out that you had taken over as CEO back in March of 2023. I just wanted to get your few words on CityLax, what it's all about, and your involvement in the program.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. So, playing lacrosse meant a lot to me. Kind of changed my life. I got to play at Notre Dame, make some great friends, and you guys all know the importance of sports. And it's a sport that isn't readily available in New York City. So CityLax was started long before me in 2005. I love what they do, so I got on board. When I was calling games to help spread the word, they asked me to join the board to kind of help raise money and bring people under the tent and increase awareness. And then when the role of CEO came up, I thought it was a natural for me to kind of take a shot at that. And it's just, for someone who loves lacrosse, I love it. I see these teams all across the 5 boroughs that have a passion for the sport. Unfortunately, it's an expensive sport to play. So we got to raise a lot of money and for these kids to have the chance, but it's really worth it because you see what it means to them. You talk to their coaches and their teachers. A lot of these students in some of these schools, they're very honest. Let's get them to school, because if they don't keep their grades up, if they're not in school, they can't play. So the attendance goes up, the grades go up, and then guess what happens? The college acceptance goes up, and it can be a life-changing experience. So when I hear stories like that, I'm even more committed to spreading the word and trying to raise as much money as possible, around the lacrosse community. Because if you play lacrosse and lacrosse meant a lot to you, there's a good chance it changed your life with something that had nothing to do with the scoreboard, whether it was getting a job or getting into a school or meeting friends. So you give back and you try to move the game forward and change the game and create as many opportunities for the students in New York City that you had. So I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about it. It's something that means a lot to me, and it's not easy, but we just keep plugging. And when you go out to a practice or a game, you really feel rewarded because you see how much it means to the students.
Amazing
Awesome.
work there.
That's a great job, Eamon, on that. And
Thanks.
Is there a link or is there anything that anybody can go to if they want to drop a donation or
it's citylax.org, or you can follow us on Instagram at CityLaxNYC. It's the best way to keep up to date with what we're doing. We're really trying to expand into some middle schools so younger students can start playing. Thanks a lot for the plug there. There it is, citylax.org, and Instagram. So, it's in it. Every little bit helps because you guys play sports. You've been around sports. Everything costs money. Even, like teams from Staten Island going to Queens or Brooklyn to play games. You got to go over that bridge. It's going to cost a lot of money and vice versa. Yes. So every little bit helps.
And a shout out from our very own over at Empire State of Baseball. Sierra here goes, love lacrosse. Such an amazing sport. But amazing work. Amazing work here, Eamon. And once again, we really do appreciate you for your time tonight. Thank you so much. This baseball season coming down to the wire. The Mets and Yankees are still obviously well into the conversation of the playoffs, and hoping even on the Yankee side of the house, I'm hoping the Mets are starting to make their way back into the NL wildcard mix, because I think it's just great for the game, great for the city to see those two teams in the mix. But Eamon, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it, and you're more than welcome to come back to the show anytime.
Great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun, and anytime. Just Joe, when Soto signs with the Mets, I don't want you to rub it in too bad that I was dead wrong. Okay.
I'll try not to, Eamon.
Joe won't let anyone. If that happens, Joe is gonna not let anyone live that down.
No, it's gonna be a week for Yankee fans, no doubt. That'd be when all of a sudden you go out of town.
Joe's gonna buy billboards to put that up.
Yeah. Great. All right. Thanks
so much again, Eamon. Thank you very much,
Eamon. Thank you.
And that is Eamon McAnaney over at SNY. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the video up there, but such a great sport and a great interview there. And make sure, if you haven't already, let's give Eamon some love on his social platforms and give a follow at Eamon NYC on Instagram, and Eamon Mac NYC, that is, on Instagram, and then on his X account, that is EMACSNY. So give him a follow, and of course, send that love over to CityLax. I did drop the link just before here, citylax.org, and then obviously those relevant social platforms as well. But let's talk about YouTube, and talking about YouTube tonight is our good buddy Joe. Take it away.
Yes, we are live on Instagram and X, but YouTube is actually our preferred place to view Empire State of Baseball. Why? Because we can interact with you. We can throw up your comments. We can bring your questions to our guests. You guys can participate in the games fully. X and Instagram, not so much. They kind of have a technical limitation when interacting with us. So you can go over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It's free. We're over 385 subscribers now. We gained another one today. Nice. So you can join our full experience over there. And please spread the word. We're trying to get to 500. Once we get to 500, we could do another giveaway. That's our goal. So if you spread it to somebody who likes baseball, spread it to somebody who has a YouTube account who doesn't really pay attention. That's what I did to my father. So, help us inflate those numbers, guys. Likes and subscribes. It's free to do.
Shout out to Senior. Let's get to the chat here. We have a few people dropped in during the Eamon interview, and thank you guys all so much for coming out and joining. I know there's a Yankee game going on right now with our predominant Yankee chat, so we always do appreciate your love and support joining us during a live game. Shout out to Big Slick. Oh, snap, it's Rich Rivera. We also have Christy Evans in the house over at Yankees Pod. Shout out to Chris. Our guy Pars is in the building. Love lacrosse. We did pull up that comment before. Ghost, sorry, I missed your question. I just saw your question now. Sorry about that. What's your favorite broadcasting moments? I think actually Eamon did cover that earlier in the interview. So if you go back on YouTube, you should be able to catch it within the first few minutes of the interview. He does talk about some interview highlights that he's had over his career. Nitin Ramatandra at the NR Hour Sports Show, one of our own creator spotlight guests that we have here on the program. Shout out to Nitin. We also have our guy H Show in the building. He made it. And like I mentioned before, my guy Hector is going through a rebrand. He is now Uptown Sports TV. So if you haven't already, make sure to give Uptown Sports TV a subscribe and follow in all the relevant platforms. He says here, look at Joe with that fresh comb over. And then he gives me a little bit of a history lesson on lacrosse. The history of lacrosse is deep for those who don't know. You can trace it back to the roots, the early Iroquois and that
go on,
people.
Go on. Say it.
I don't know.
Rich, give it a shot. Give it a shot.
Okay, hang on.
Haudenosaunee.
Haudenosaunee. Wow. Okay, Haudenosaunee.
There's no Joe can't pronounce like Volpe correct. You think he's gonna pronounce this correct?
He nailed it.
Haudenosaunee people.
Haudenosaunee people. It was French.
I was an American history major. Come on, guys.
Oh, okay. Listen. And now you made it here. The history of lacrosse is deep for those who don't know. You can trace back its roots to early Iroquois Haudenosaunee. Oh, that was the same comment. I literally just read it twice. All right. Well, that was, thank you for the history lesson there, Hector. Really do appreciate it. And really do appreciate Eamon and what he's doing for the community with CityLax and lacrosse. And it was one of those sports that, like, my dad tried to get me to play, and I was like, hell no. It looks like that's a sport that just hurts no matter what you play, how safe you play it. I just wasn't me. So yep, the more you know. But let's move on to the Empire Expresses, which is usually how we start our shows. But in the reverse, we had her at the plate to go kick things off. But the Empire Express, we're gonna kick things off with the New York Metropolitans. I know we've been talking about the Mets on and off for today, but Corey, Favs, your latest and greatest thoughts on the Mets?
Well, the latest and greatest is just inconsistency, like we were talking about a little earlier with Eamon, and it's a little frustrating that right now the Mets. Good news is, despite the inconsistent play, they find themselves just 2.5 games back. But if they've played more consistent baseball over the last month or so, they would be a wild card team right now. A game like last night hurts too, because right now, and we said this last week, the only two guys who really trust in that pen are, Edwin Diaz, obviously, and Jose Butto. And it's unfortunate that Butto has looked a little rough in his last couple of outings. And sure enough, he goes ahead and, blows that game yesterday. So it's unfortunate right now with the New York Mets. Their offense in general, I do think they have an offense to compete with any team in baseball, but the pitching is really starting to look fractured. Got to give Jose Quintana a shout out too. He's been so brutally bad for about a month. He showed up to play against a good Padres team in the wild card, chase right now. He showed up to play yesterday. He gave us a very good position to win. We did not connect. Where the Mets right now are very, very fortunate that the Braves are struggling. Somehow, we're 4 straight weeks where the Mets find themselves within 7.5, 8.5 games out of the NL East, too, within 2.5 of the wild card. They're just treading water. And what you saw before in May, the team was historically bad, followed by an historically great second half of June into the middle of July. And right now they're playing 500 teams. So essentially you took a really low, you took a really high, and now you're averaging out 500 because the Mets seem to win a couple of big games, then lose a couple of bad games. And it's back and forth. And the problem is, and we were, again, talking about it a little earlier, if this was June, even early July, and you're just playing mediocre, splitting games, splitting series, it's fine. But the Mets are at a point right now where they really need to start going on those 7 of 10 stretches. Maybe get a 5-game win streak, because you have to start making up these games, especially this week. Had a chance to take 3 or 4 versus the Padres, who are right in front of you. You end up splitting, so you don't gain ground. You have the Diamondbacks this week. Again, have to win this series. You can't start losing series. They have to start putting together wins because it is getting late. Labor Day is next Monday. So the time to get more consistent is now. I'm happy they're there, but I'm a little concerned that they're not doing it consistently night in, night out.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem with this team right now is it's not that they're playing bad baseball at all. It's they are not closing out the games that they need to close out. This is a prime example yesterday. That changes the complexion of the wild card race. You are right on the heels of the Braves. There's less margin from error, and you stay within earshot of the San Diego Padres. You win a series from them. You've taken 2 out of 3 from the Orioles, and now you're riding into Arizona, which is a red-hot team, hot in your own right. So that's a huge, huge difference. And listen, the Mets have had 4 or 5 games. They lost by 1 run to the Padres. They lost by 1 run to the Marlins. That's going to cost them. They lost by 1 run to the Athletics, and they lost 2 games to the Angels by 1 run. The Mets have had 5 1-run losses in the past basically 2.5 weeks that you're going to look back and say these games cost them, and they're against teams that they should be. The Padres notwithstanding, you should have beaten the A's. You can't lose to the A's by 1 run. You can't lose to the Marlins by 1 run, and you can't lose to the Angels twice by 1 run. So these are the kind of games that separate good teams from mediocre teams. And the Mets have, listen, they got Arizona, then they got the White Sox coming in. They basically need to sweep the White Sox. Then they got the Red Sox coming in. The schedule is going to play up and down a little bit. And then the last week of the season, you have to be within 2 games of the Atlanta Braves going into that last week of the season, because you got a 3-game set with Atlanta, you got 3-game set with Philly, and then you got 3-game set with Milwaukee. Milwaukee might have nothing to play for, so that might benefit you. But those 9 games at the end, you have to be within shouting distance of the Braves, otherwise you're not catching them. So the Mets this is as far back as the Mets can fall, in my opinion. They must play better. And listen, Eamon alluded to it. Alonso has to step up, but I'm actually looking at, I need JD Martinez to step up. I need Brandon Nimmo to step up, even more so than Alonso. We know Alonso's power is there, but we need more production in the lineup that's not from just Lindor and Vientos. Vientos is on fire, by the way. He's looked fantastic. They need more depth up and down that lineup, and they need these guys that they paid big money to step up in a big way.
I wanted to ask you two guys this question, just because we're looking at we're about to turn the calendar over to September, and of course you got the September call-ups, which is now dwindled all the way down to 2. Used to be a lot of fun. Used to go all the way up to 40. Now it's down to 2 spots you can add. Joe, Corey, is there anybody who's currently not on the team's active roster that you think can make an impact for the Mets for this stretch run from September into the playoffs? Hopefully.
Yeah, I think me personally, it's probably going to be one of these pitchers. From an offensive standpoint, you thought maybe it would be a Drew Gilbert, but he's been hurt. He's not playing well in AAA. And the Mets offense right now is doing pretty good. I trust the Mets offense, but they need some help on the pitching side too. I mean, Christian Scott is hurt. We'll see if he ends up coming back. But from a minor league standpoint, let's see if one of these young pitchers can come up and help this team. Probably not in the rotation. You try to see if you could squeeze a little lightning in a bottle like you did with Budo a few months ago, bringing him up in the bullpen. Maybe it's a Tidwell. Maybe it's a Vassell. I know Sproat's name's been mentioned. I wouldn't rush him just yet. He literally just got the call up to AAA. Let him stay there for a little bit. But his name's been mentioned as well because he's got electric stuff. So if you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle late in the year, an electric arm to get a couple of outs in the bullpen is a good way to go. But I think it's going to be one, if anyone, I think it's probably one of these young arms, the starting pitching prospects that are right there on the cusp in AAA. If you go to MLB.com, again, not the best source of prospect news, but a lot of these high-end pitchers in the Mets system, 2024, 2025 ETAs, September call-up could be the time where you try to squeeze a little lightning out of a young arm in the pen.
Yeah, I thought it was a lock to be Beatty before Beatty broke his finger the other day. He's probably going to be done for the rest of the year. I actually think it's going to be Luis Angel Acuna, not necessarily because I think he's ready to call up, but the Mets need an element of speed off the bench that they don't have right now. And Acuna brings that ability to pinch run at any given time. You're going to have an extended bench between Marte, Winker, Tyrone Taylor, Vientos, McNeil. You're going to have guys coming in and out, even Iglesias. You need that. You need a guy that's going to be able to come in and steal a base at will late in ball games. Acuna brings that element that I think the Mets don't really have on their bench when a guy like Bader is starting, and a guy like Marte maybe is a little too old to feel that way. So I think that they're going to move in that. DJ Stewart doesn't serve a purpose coming up here.
Well, just hanging on to Luis Angel Acuna for a second, because I get the point, especially if this team somehow cracks into October. That's the sort of player you want at least on your bench, bringing dynamic speed. But Joe, obviously, if we're going in terms of the rules of MLB, that call needs to happen within the next 4 days for Acuna to be eligible to play for.
Well, yeah, I don't think
that's not the rule anymore.
It's not the rule anymore.
You just have to be in the organization.
So is he on the 40-man roster?
Yes.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, if he's on the 40-man roster, then it's fine.
It doesn't matter about 40-man roster.
No, I think it does still.
No, it doesn't anymore. They have to be in the organization. So if they are any player that the Mets employ before September 1st is eligible to go on the postseason roster, they don't even have to play on the Mets this season.
Yeah, I again, and I don't think he'll end up being on the playoff roster if the Mets make the playoffs. The point is, they need that element of speed. They need that threat that if Alonso or one of the catchers gets on late in a ball game, he can pinch run at first base. He's got 32 steals in the minor leagues this year. I know he's not hitting well. He can be a defensive substitution for a few games. That's not what I'm looking to bring, that dynamic element of speed. He's on the 40-man. You don't have to cut anybody else. You don't have to make a move. That's my thought process. I know it's starting the clock on him and you're getting minimal return for bringing a young player up, but it's the one player right now on the 40-man on their roster that can make that kind of difference that you can utilize in very specific moments.
Especially when you're playing from behind like the Mets are trying to make up ground. You have to get aggressive to try to make up the games. You make the playoffs, it's on the roster anyway. Playoffs is a different game. You tend to be a little more conservative in terms of the game, managing the game, getting it done. But when you're trying to make that playoff spot, making up the grounds, you have to be aggressive. So I definitely see the point with Acuna and the speed there.
Mets have 31 games remaining. They have, as you said, the Arizona Diamondbacks coming up, a big series for them. But I think really what the Mets need to do is after that series, they go to the White Sox, who stink. Then they have the Red Sox, who have fallen out of it, the Reds, who have fallen out of it, both those series on the road. And then they go to the Blue Jays, who have also fallen out of it. So 4 straight series against non-playoff teams. Yeah. I think that is where, with 31 games remaining, the Mets have to, at some point, you have to just win games. You have to win enough games to make the playoffs. And in that stretch, you need to, go well over 500. You need to be
20 plus wins.
Yeah, 20. I mean, 20 wins, I think, definitely get you in. But I'm saying in that span, I think they're all 3-game sets, so 12 games. You got to pull out a 9-3, an 8-4. Yeah. I would say you do at least 8-4 in that time frame. Should get you close. Because again, you want to be like Joe. I think you mentioned you want to have, when you play the Braves at the end of the month, you want to have a chance. Now I know that might be a little bit of PTSD for some Mets fans because I had that conversation 2 years ago, and boy, did it not turn out well. But hey, it's a new year, and that's, you want to at least have that shot when you go against them.
Yeah, I am using no hair product, just water, guys. Just water.
Shout out to our guy Boogie who wanted to let Tom know to go kick rocks. This is usually his parting word for our guy Tom. Yeah. And I forgot one shout out earlier on the show to Sierra Yeager. Shout out to Sierra as well. All right, let's wrap things up with the New York Yankees. The Yankees going to today up 1.5 games, but if this score holds on between the Yanks and Nationals, which currently they're up 4-1, unless Tom has a score update that's more
4-1 still. Unless Jazz hits a home run right here. Oh my God, did I just call it? It is 5-1. Jazz Chisholm's hit a home run.
Oh, there you go, right there. Jazz Chisholm with a home run. Tom Wospil on the call. Very nicely done. Really bringing
Move over, Michael K. I'm coming for your job with that.
There you go. So if this score holds on, the Yankees will have, I believe, a 2-game week. I think the Orioles are not playing.
They're on the way to LA to hopefully get that ass waxed.
There you go. Yeah, Orioles start a 3-game set, I would presume, or a 4-gamer against the Dodgers. But
it's a 5-game set. Just stay out there.
Right.
Go ahead, hit more homers and steal more bases.
But all right, well, the Yankees are up on the Orioles. It's been a while since I had a flip the two in the standings, but they've been so back and forth that again, I'll keep saying it. Like, it would shock me if this team does have more than 3 games of separation. Yet they're getting kind of close there with the Orioles. Splitting that series against Houston. But again, you look at the Yankee side of the house, and you love to see. Great moments like Sunday where it's back-to-back home runs with the heart of your order. But the Yankees are still losing games to teams that they have no business losing to. In Colorado, in Chicago.
I mean, you're not gonna win every game. The Tigers series hurts. You lost that, but then that Sunday game was weird. But you took the series against the White Sox. You took the series against Cleveland. You took the series against Colorado. So as long as you keep winning series, you'll be in a good spot. I think the Yankees have the chance if just to kind of keep holding on, right? Because the schedule, I think it's going to eventually start evening out a little bit more. But
Orioles have 3 in Colorado, 3 at home against the White Sox coming up after the Dodgers. So then they're going to play Detroit. They have 6 games left against Detroit before the end of the season.
Yeah, Yankees still get to go to Oakland, and the Yankees actually get to finish against Pittsburgh. But the same 3-game series where the Mets are playing the Braves, the Yankees are home to the Orioles. So that week, the 24th, 25th, and 26th of September is going to be a tense time in the Empire State of Baseball family. Playoff spots, seeding will be on the line. Division titles. It's gonna be fun. And I'm not ready for it mentally or emotionally or physically or spiritually, I guess. I don't know. I'm not ready for it at all.
Spiritually,
in every way possible.
Yeah, every way.
Wow. All right. Well, I'll ask the same question and to you, Tom, that I asked Corey and Joe. September call-ups coming up. Who would you like to see on this active roster come next week over the next couple of weeks that can make an impact?
I mean, the obvious answer is Jason Dominguez. If the Yankees want him to be potentially the left fielder, or at least platooning with Verdugo in the playoffs, you gotta get him up to get some ABs. Outside of that, I'd like the Yankees to start bringing up some of the relievers they have that I feel like they're stashing in the minors with Efros, Trevino. Marinaccio is going to have a role on this team. I feel the Yankees have this annoying thing with their front office where they feel like they're smarter than everyone. And I feel like they're no one's going to expect Scott Efros coming up, who's been pitching really well in the
we'll give Phil Bickford opportunities that he doesn't deserve.
But Bickford is just a
net reject.
He's a placeholder for now. I think they're gonna eventually, bring up these guys, but I think they need to come up and see some major league hitters. They're going against triple and quadruple A players right now. I think those are guys that really could make a impact because some of the other positions of the team are starting to solidify more. Glaber has been playing well, especially out of the leadoff spot. Mm-hmm. We'll see if Rizzo comes back to take first and we just kind of finally kick DJ to the can. But I don't know. I think those are the not obvious other than, the Dominguez that I'd like to see come up and really start doing their thing.
I think one player that you're going to see soon who's going to be activated off the IL, who I think will make a good impact on this team, is going to be Clark Schmidt. Clark Schmidt, prior to his injury, looked to be one of the top pitchers out at Yankees rotation. I'd say he was on the pace to potentially crack the All-Star team as one of the pitchers out there. But when Clark went down with the injury, obviously that stunted his momentum that he has. Now, obviously, it's unfair to put pressure on this kid to come back and expect him to be the same pitcher he was for the first 2 months of the season. But, you start to really form this Yankees rotation, and you have to think at this point, 3 of those spots are going to go to the guys you're paying to do the job, in Cole, Rodon, and Marcus Stroman. So that 4th spot's really up for grabs between a Clark Schmidt, a Nestor Cortez Jr., maybe even Cody Poteet. And then you also got to think about Luis Hill. Will the Yankees start Luis Hill at some point again when he comes back? My answer, I think, is no. I think you cannot have Luis Hill start another game this season. It's the back injury, I think, is a precursor to what could have been something a lot worse for Hill. But this is a guy who's not used to this workload, and I cannot, in good faith, hope that he comes back into the Yankee starting rotation. So I think Clark Schmidt is the guy for me that can potentially crack that 4th spot out of the Yankees rotation.
Yeah, I mean,
so I really want to see him make an impact.
It depends. I mean, Hill could be a good option in the bullpen, though, because he's a guy that he already throws hard normally, and I know we have if we have worries about his innings, have
control.
Him, yeah,
Control's
but listen, true, but I mean, he has electric stuff. And he brings something that the Yankees bullpen doesn't do well. He strikes guys out with his stuff. So I think that could be a place for him. That could potentially be a place for Clark, depending if he can really get rolling. It's gonna be tough, I think, for him to kind of get it ready to give you 100 plus pitches in the playoffs at this point. So maybe both of those guys become weapons out of the bullpen, and the Yankees kind of go with more of that route, but it's going to be very interesting. I think the 1-2 are clear because Rodon has been very good as of late. He had one stinker against Detroit, but other than that, for the past, I think like 5 or 6 starts, he's been very good. And Cole is, you hope is Cole, and you ride those two, and then you get the best you can in the playoffs out of the Nestor and Stroman and go from there.
Yeah, see what you can do. But all I know is it's going to be a fun September on this show. I mean, between the AL East race, between the Yankees and the Orioles, pretty much going to par from what I said months ago. That race is going to be decided in the last week of the season. And the Mets in the wild card chase, just stay close enough to be within striking distance that last week and a half.
I'd be shocked that that final series is irrelevant at this point in the season. I mean, it's been so flip-floppy in that division that it's really going to be box office come that final week of the season.
Yes.
Those teams are facing
off. It's going to be a big one.
It's also you're also going to have potential Judge 62, 63 going on.
Yeah.
Yankees have the last 2 series at home. The Bronx will be burning that last week of the season. The
one way or another, it's going to burn.
Yeah.
It's going to be buzzing.
Last question, because I did not do the service for the 99th episode of the show without talking about 99 over here. But what do you guys think is going to be the final number for Judge? If you had a guess for the home runs for currently he's back on pace to break his own record. The American League record, that is, in 2022. But we'll start with Corey, then Joe and Tom. Final number for Judge.
Gun to my head, I'm going to say 60. He crosses the 60 milestone, but doesn't break his own record.
I'd probably say 62. But I think he's going to get to the point. The Orioles are not going to throw him a pitch at all in that final series. You're going to have teams that are contending for a playoff series that are just flat out not going to pitch to him. I think it's the pace slows down. Colorado's playing for nothing. Colorado's pitching to him every at bat. Other teams are not going to continue to do that.
I think what's interesting is he really seemed to struggle getting to 61 and 62 last year, or 2 years ago, because the pressure was kind of getting to him. I don't think the pressure of breaking your own record is nearly as high as breaking Maris's record. So I don't think he'll have that on him. And the other thing is we've seen Judge, and he's in one right now, have these unconscious time frames where he'll hit 15 homers in a month. I think he really could break it. I agree. It depends if he will get to it, if pitchers will pitch to him. I think he rides his heater out a little bit more, and he gets to 63. I say he breaks it because he's going to be just red hot for another week. That'll get him another 4 or 5 homers.
Boogie's got 65 here, and our guy H.O. with 64. I'm actually with Joe. I am going to go with 62 as well. I think it's going to be kind of a heartbreaker too, because he's just so close to breaking that record. I think he does match, and in that last week, I think it's more of a settle in of like, hey, you're playing the Orioles, very important series. I think obviously you want to hit the ball out of the yard as much as you can, but I think he's going to do a lot of the little things. He's going to get walked a lot, as we've seen in a set like that. So in his pursuit of being one away from breaking his record, I think he's just going to fall short of the mark within those final 6 games of the season. So I'm going with 62 on the dot. All right. So that will do it for tonight's show. But before we send you guys off, make sure to join us over on X. The party continues with extra innings. So make sure you give us a follow at ESP Podcast or subsidiaries at ESPNYM, at ESPNYY, Corey at G Gory, Joe at JR Pugsby, at Rich J Rivera, Tom at T Waspil 15, Sierra at Sierra Not Miss. And that is where Sierra is going to take the floor, because at about 9:15 p.m. Eastern time, Sierra will be hosting our show, our post-show space known as Extra Innings. Joe pops in. I'll be there. Hopefully Joe's there. I don't know if Joe's going to be there. Joe, you be there?
I'll see. I'll let you know. All right.
Maybe Corey, maybe Tom. And all the fans are begging for Tom Wospil to show up on Twitter.
Appreciate you calling it Twitter, but we'll see.
For you. I'm trying to ease you into it. That's why. All right. Well, make sure to join us for the next 2 weeks, because our schedule is a little all over the place right now, because tonight was our final show at the 8:00 hour on a Monday. But next week, we're going over to Tuesday just because it's Labor Day weekend, and we want you guys to enjoy your holiday weekend, as I want my guys to enjoy their holiday weekend as well. So we're not going to have a show next Monday, but we will be moving it to Tuesday, September the 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And it's a big show. Why? Because it's number 100. And our number 100th episode, we have some things in the making that we're going to reveal to you on our social platforms over the next few days. But we're looking forward to that centennial episode. That is going to be next Tuesday, September the 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Mark your calendars. And then that's going to be followed, of course, by episode 101, which is going to be at our new start time. Back on a Monday. We'll be back on Mondays as we've been for most part of the season. But this time, we're going to be at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time to start because we ain't trying to compete with Monday Night Football and you football lovers out there. So we're trying to stay out of the way of Monday Night Football. So at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on Mondays, starting on September the 9th, that is when we will go live for our YouTube stream as we count down the remaining days of the regular season. But that's going to do it for tonight's episode 99, the Judgian episode of Empire State of Baseball. Thank you all. No, the Turk Wendell episode. That's right. Thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. Again, shout out and thank you to Eamon McAnaney for joining us today. Great interview. Looking forward to having Eamon on future episodes of Empire State of Baseball. Hopefully we see his face next time. Well, let's go around then Joe and Corey to wrap.
No thanks to Mark Leiter Jr., who gives up another home run and continues to stink and continues to do his best to make sure he's not on this postseason roster. But also thank you to Eamon. Appreciate it. It was a great interview. A lot of fun.
Joe?
Oh, no. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it. And we can't wait for our episode 100. We can't wait for football season. Most importantly, I can't wait for Labor Day. We're going to have a big barbecue up at the Pugliese household all the way up in PA, and it's going to be a blast.
Yep. No, 100%. Again, thank you, Eamon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. It was a great show. We'll see you in September. Believe it or not, September. Take care.